Greetings and salutations to everyone out there in football land. Welcome to another episode of the PFF NFL show. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's Dalton Wasserman. You see that big smile on his face over there? It's because he told me before the show that he feels like I intro the show the same way every single time. He's like, Max does the same thing on the college show. We just get into a rhythm, and so I figured I'd throw a little curveball there at you, Dalton. Did you expect the salutations there to start the show?
If anything, I didn't expect you to be so formal about it, for sure. I didn't know. It feels like we're starting like a quest or something here to get through this Thanksgiving slate. But no, certainly. All right, that's a curveball. There you go, Trev. You mixed it up a little bit there. You know what? Actually, just go back to the old one. I actually like the old one better. That was, you said you were going to throw me off with something that did kind of throw me off. Now we're just completely we're off the rails. 30 seconds into the show, we're a mess already.
We were joking again before we hit record, and I can't remember if it was you who said that or if this is Quinn, who is our producer, said this. Was like, you should just start the show and just be like, Dalton, how you doing? Like, that's it. Like, don't even say welcome to the PFF NFL show. It should have just been like right to you, just straight to you.
And that would
have really messed you up.
Just cold open conversation, like it's not even a football show or anything. Just let it rip. Jeez, boy. What a week we would start off with that. That's
maybe you'll have to do that at some point.
Man.
Well, hello to everybody. Formally, officially, we're here to preview Week 13 in the NFL. It's a holiday week, so there's all sorts of craziness. We got 3 Thanksgiving Day games. We got a Black Friday game. We got the Sunday slate. We got Monday Night Football. We got games all over the place. Anytime you got a holiday coming up, the NFL is going to take advantage of it. If you're at home, they want football on your TV, and that's exactly what we're going to get this weekend. I'm excited to break all these things down. We got 3 Thanksgiving Day games. We got a Black Friday game, and then, like I said, the Sunday slate and the Monday slate. So we'll kind of break these games up as we are going to see them in the order that we're going to see them. And we're going to throw a ton of numbers here at you on the show. If you guys don't have a PFF Plus subscription, now's a great time to get one because you can see all of these numbers for yourself and so much more. Use the promo code Black Friday to get 40% off. There's only a couple of days left. We're only going to the beginning of next week. So, guys, this is one of the biggest sales the PFF has ever done. If you take advantage of this 40% sale, it gets it down to $6 a month for all the premium stats, the premium data, the grades, the fantasy football tools, the player prop tools for betting, which we'll talk about a bunch here on this show, the draft tools once we get into draft season, unlimited mock drafts with the mock draft simulator. So much value from a PFF Plus subscription year-round. So make sure you're getting 40% off. Black Friday. That's the promo code. If you don't have one, you got to get one right now. Let's dig into it, though. Let's get right into Thanksgiving slate. Lions, Packers. So it's in Detroit. Of course it is. It's Thanksgiving. It's a tradition that we have here. Dalton, we'll talk about both sides of the ball here. You want to talk about the Packers side of things? You want to start talking about the Lions side of things?
I think, look, there's been a lot of debate about the Packers offense and how it should be run and how much should they run the ball, how much should they throw it, where should they throw it deep, be conservative, how should they go about this? But the one thing I've seen over the 5 games that he's played, Christian Watson has made a real impact since coming back from injury here. How about an 83.4 receiving grade for Christian Watson, 16.6 yards per catch, almost a 20-yard average depth of target. Basically, the speed threat, the guy that was supposed to take the safeties off the top all season was supposed to be Matthew Golden. He's come down with an injury or two lately, and he just hasn't been all that efficient. Christian Watson has come in and done that, right? And we know in his scouting report originally, he's big and he's fast. Those are the two big appeals to him, and he's made it happen deep down the field. And you get this again, this pendulum I keep talking about with this Packers offense of controlling safeties and controlling the depth of zone coverages. Watson is the guy getting that done right now with plays down the field, and how about 8 out of 12 so far uncontested targets. So I think when you really look at Watson and what he's added to this team, really it was the dimension that Golden was supposed to add. Maybe eventually you get both of them involved, and it's really interesting too that since Tucker Kraft went down with his torn ACL, that the Packers have had to use 11 personnel at a top 5 rate. So they need these wide receivers to step up. Right now Christian Watson is doing it. He had a big game against Detroit last year in Detroit as well in a Packer victory. I have to sit here and wonder that, if Watson can be that deep threat again and take those safeties off the top, that it opens things up for everybody else, because that's what's been happening lately.
Yeah, I think that was the ideal role for him going into the season, right? They had so many different wide receivers and tight ends. We'll throw the tight ends obviously in there too with Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave and those guys. But there were a lot of different receivers with Christian Watson who they knew was going to come back from injury. You had Romeo Doubs, you had Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. There were just so many players in this offense. But even with them fully healthy on paper, this was the role that I think a lot of people just knew Christian Watson was going to give them the biggest return on investment. So him being back in the lineup, him playing really well, especially as that vertical deep threat, I mean, that's an element of their offense that they have looked to him to fill, honestly, the entire time that he's been with the Packers. But certainly this year, it's meaning a lot with a couple of those other receivers and tight ends, like I mentioned with Tucker Kraft, down for the season. So I think that makes a ton of sense for him being an X factor here in this game. You've talked about this before. We talked about this as recently as 2 days ago when we were going over the review show. The Lions, when they run the football well, they're very, very difficult to stop. And sometimes football can be boiled down to some things that are as simple as that. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs over 200 yards rushing last week, over 14 yards per carry, which was insane. Now, it doesn't have to quite be that every single week, but if this team is running the ball effectively and explosively, it's just really hard to beat them. It's really hard to beat this team. Now, the Packers, they are 22nd in average run defense grade and EPA per rush allowed over the last month. So I didn't just go the whole season. I went over the last months for a little bit of a what have you been doing for me lately kind of view on this topic. And I think that the Packers had the ability to slow down the Lions in the run, but they certainly haven't showed that as of late. There have been times during this season where Jeff Hafley and that defense have been playing really, really well. I mean, when the offense wasn't playing well, whatever it was 3-4 weeks ago, it was the defense that was having to hold up their end of the bargain and then some in order for the Packers to get some wins there during that stretch. It's kind of evened out a little bit, and defense is a little bit more up and down than offense normally is throughout a season anyways. And so they'll have to have their best performance against the run, I think, over the last month if they are going to beat the Detroit Lions. Ultimately, Dalton, I don't think they do. I'm taking the Detroit Lions in this one. I'm taking the home team. I think the Lions are playing really well, and I just think that they're going to get the best of the Packers in this one. I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a fun game, but I do think that Detroit's going to be able to run the ball the way they need to win this one. I'm going to go Lions 28, Packers 23. What do you got here?
I had a really hard time picking this game. I was originally on the Lions, and then just before the show, I actually switched to the Packers. I have Green Bay 27-24, and I think the one X factor for me is I need to know which Jared Goff that we're getting, and he's, as he generally has been for the last few years, he's been one of the lowest graded passers in football under pressure, and I still worry about the Micah Parsons effect, and the Packers are moving him around all around the line of scrimmage in recent weeks, getting him in the A-gaps, over the center, getting more creative with them as the season goes on. I think Jeff Hafley's done a really nice job of that. I worry about Jared Goff in big spots here, and it's an interesting element for both of these offenses having lost their starting tight ends for the entire season, or we're expecting Sam Laporta to be out for the rest of the season. But I'm going to take Green Bay. I think this is a really hard game to pick, but I'm just not sure that Jared Goff is going to be able to get it done against this defense.
The next Thanksgiving Day game that we have, this is a treat, man. Chiefs at Cowboys. Obviously, it's Thanksgiving, so the Cowboys are going to host one of these games on Thanksgiving. But it being the Kansas City Chiefs is one thing. I think two massive fan bases in the Cowboys in Kansas City. But it's the fact that this almost feels kind of must-win for both teams if they want to have any shot at the playoffs, right? The Chiefs have a little bit better of a record than the Cowboys, but I think they've also got the deeper hole that they have to dig themselves out of in order to make the playoffs. I don't even know if they're going to contend for the division at this point. It'd have to be a real collapse by the Denver Broncos for that to be the case, and it'd have to be an incredible run by Kansas City. But even with them making the wild card, and then, of course, the Cowboys are behind the eight ball in the record book in the win-loss column as well. So these are two teams that, if there's ever a do-or-die game as early as Thanksgiving, it kind of feels like this is one of them. So do you want to talk about the Cowboys or the Chiefs here for this preview?
Look, I'm going to talk about Dak Prescott. I think he's right in the middle, right in the center of attention here. He took down a great defense this past week against Philadelphia, and he's got another one to deal with here in Kansas City. The secondary especially is outstanding, and I think there's so much suspense that's going to go into this game when it comes to Dallas's passing game, right? When you look at Prescott being one of the best passers in football vertically on 10-plus yard throws, 7th in both passing grade and adjusted completion rate, but the Chiefs are a top 3 team in the NFL at preventing those vertical passes from being completed. They've allowed the second fewest completions on 10-plus yard throws and have the 3rd best coverage grade. When you look at just all of the elements of the passing game in this one, you talk about George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, Kevontae Turpin, right? All the guys in the passing game that can make big plays for the Cowboys. And then you look at Jalen Watson, Trent McDuffie. How often is he going to be on CeeDee Lamb in the slot, or how often is he going to be outside? Brian Cook, Shamari Connor at safety, right? All the depth of corners that the Chiefs have. I just think it's just going to be such a great good-on-good battle in this passing game, and Prescott's going to be at the top of his game. And then, as always, there's the battle with the quarterback versus Steve Spagnuolo, right? How often is Spagnuolo going to blitz him? Dak Prescott's been great against the blitz and under pressure this year. Is he going to sit back in coverage and not let those weapons on the outside, especially George Pickens, get one-on-one opportunities? I just think there's so many fascinating elements to this matchup that it really is going to be just so entertaining to watch when you look at Prescott and the way that he's rolling right now, getting back on this hot streak, and the Chiefs secondary being arguably the best in football.
Yeah, and look, I think that the memorable part of that Eagles-Cowboys game is the fact that the Dallas Cowboys came back and they won that game, and I don't want to take anything away from them in that regard, but let us not forget they were down 21-0 in that game as well. So even though things ended well for the Cowboys, there are still things to work on and get better at, and when you're facing a team like Kansas City, it's hard to believe that if you dig yourself a hole like that, you're going to be able to get out of it. So we know that the Cowboys have to play better right out of the gate. On the Chiefs side of things, obviously a big win against the Indianapolis Colts. Specifically, we mentioned on the Monday show, holding the Colts to 4 straight 3-and-outs on their final 4 drives of the game. That is Steve Spagnuolo and this defense clamping down in the clutch when they needed to, and that's what this defense has really been all about. But on the offensive side of things, Rashee Rice obviously played a massive role in what they did last week. 141 yards on 12 targets, 8 receptions. Travis Kelce got 4 catches for 43 yards. But as I was sort of looking at their offense, and I was trying to find some numbers to say, like, okay, well, what outside of Rashee Rice? Because I'm kind of tired of just saying, like, oh, Rashee Rice, he's got to have a big game, because that's basically what the Chiefs' offense is at this point. If Rashee Rice doesn't have a big game, I don't really think the Chiefs can win many ball games. And so when I looked at some of the stats that they had from last week, and that win, obviously them giving Kareem Hunt 30 carries was a big deal there. And I think when we took a look at this Chiefs team a couple of weeks ago, and we were looking at that very topic, how anemic it felt like they were rushing the football. They just didn't have any explosiveness. They didn't have a ton of explosiveness last week, although Kareem Hunt looked like he had a little bit more juice to him. Brashard Smith is the player that I look at, and we've been clamoring for him to get more work in this Chiefs offense, and I wonder if it's coming, because even though he doesn't get a ton of snaps still, Dalton, when he's on the field, he's a factor. 2.38 yards per route run when they put him out there as a receiver or as a running back out of the backfield as a receiving running back. 96 QBR when he is targeted. That was, I think, best on the team, if I remember correctly, of guys who have played as many snaps as him or more over the last month. And then last week, he had a 30.8 threat percentage. That was second only to Rashee Rice, who had, I believe it was a 31.5% threat percentage, which threat percentage is basically wide receiver usage, how often you are targeted per route that you are running out there. So yards per route run, threat percentage, you can use those two numbers to basically say, hey, the offense very much prioritizes this player when they are out there on the field. So Smith hasn't gotten a ton of snaps. When he's out there, they're targeting him. I wonder if the workload is coming for him, if they are going to increase his snaps and increase his ability to get the ball and be a difference maker, because they just don't have a lot of reliable explosiveness in this offense. And I think Brashard Smith is one of those players who actually gives it to you. Now, against this Cowboys defense, they have struggled at linebacker throughout this entire season. Now, they're playing a little bit better with DeMarvion Overshown in there and Logan after trading for Logan Wilson. So it's been a little bit better as of late, but still a player who is as athletic as Smith going up against those linebackers. I mean, Overshown is athletic, but he's just coming back to form, and he's getting his feet wet after coming back from that major knee injury. Logan Wilson, I think the lack of athleticism right now in his career is why Cincinnati moved on from him when they did. So I think this is an area for them to exploit. So look for Brashard Smith to get more involved. I know we've said that a couple of times over the last few weeks, but it really, the numbers point to him being a very positive return on investment type of a player when they've got him out on the field. I do think the Chiefs win this one. I think the Chiefs win 28-24. I think this is going to be a really fun game, but ultimately I'm going to go with Kansas City, because with their back against the wall, I'm just not going to bet against Patrick Mahomes until he shows me that I should, and I don't think the Chiefs are at that point, especially with everything on the line right now.
I'm still, and I know it's Patrick Mahomes, and I know he had one of his classic comebacks last week, but I'm still not entirely sure that their offense, if they do get into a shootout here with Dallas, if they have enough to get it done, right? I know Isaiah Pacheco's coming back. Hopefully the run game will look better than it's looked recently, but the Cowboys' run defense has been a lot better, and I do think Dak Prescott, if you don't get enough pressure on him, he can take advantage, and even going against, I should say, a good secondary with Kansas City, it's going to be a fun battle. I think it's going down to the wire. I'm actually going to go with the home team. I'm taking Dallas 31-27.
Okay. We actually disagree. I just noticed this. We disagree on the first three games that we're talking about. We're on the opposite side of the coin on all three games that we have for Thanksgiving here. The final one on Thanksgiving night, it's the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to the Baltimore Ravens to take on the Ravens. Sure looks like Joe Burrow's playing in this game. All the talk is that Joe Burrow is going to play and that he's coming back for Cincinnati. I think that will mean a great deal for this team, but I know that you wanted to talk about the Ravens side of things first for this matchup.
Yeah, I think, look, the Ravens tight ends haven't been as productive as we're used to seeing, whether that's Mark Andrews not being as explosive as he used to be or Isaiah Likely being hurt, and just in general, the offense kind of schematically being a bit clunky and not being able to get those guys the ball as efficiently as usual. But if there's any game where they're going to get back on track, it's against these Cincinnati Bengals and their struggling middle of the field defense. You look at the Bengals against tight ends this year, tied for 29th in coverage grade, tied for 30th in receptions allowed, so third most in the league, most yards allowed, most touchdowns allowed, most explosive plays allowed, and this is especially a problem when it comes to facing play action, and the Bengals have faced more play action passes than any team in the league. Why? Because they're starting two rookie linebackers, and those guys step up real hard towards the run because they struggle at stopping the run too, and then you have all that space over the middle field behind them. You saw that against New England last week. Hunter Henry with a huge game, Austin Hooper getting some. Also, I just think when you look at the Ravens and the play-action heavy approach and how good Lamar Jackson has been in play-action passing this season, I kind of almost go back to that game plan they had in his first game back against the Miami Dolphins. Get in heavy sets, let the Bengals load up the box, let those guys step up against the run, and just throw it right over their heads to these tight ends. I think this should be a game. Even though he's been quiet for most of the year, I think this should be a game where Mark Andrews could have a big one because the Bengals just really have not shown that they can cover tight ends at all this year.
Yeah, and they absolutely need him to. I feel as though that tight end factor, we thought it would be a lot better for the Ravens just throughout the year, and obviously they haven't had the year that they've wanted on offense even when Lamar has been out there, and we pointed that out on the Monday show and even last week, honestly, Wednesday.
Did we lost him on the Boston Wi-Fi there? Yeah. Thanksgiving week, gotta love it. No, absolutely. I mean, but you, like Trev was saying, you look at the story for the Bengals here, and you look at Joe Burrow having to come back right now without T. Higgins out due to a concussion, Jamar Chase back from the one-game suspension. That's going to be a big factor, obviously. And Burrow put up huge numbers against the Ravens in both games last year. So you look at you back, Trev. We got you back or no? Not yet. Yeah, you're good. I thought I heard one of you in my ear. But no, I mean, Burrow, look, he's going to have to carry this Bengals team like he always does. And this Bengals team, they've got to figure it out on defense to get enough stops against Lamar in this struggling offense. But Trevor's back now, so he can take his side of the argument on this.
Sorry. We're working with hotel internet this week, folks. Holiday travels. It is what it is. Bengals side of things. I was sort of getting to my talk about the Bengals side of things. Burrow coming back, I do think means a great deal. And is Burrow going to play inside linebacker for this team? No, he's not. And I think that's probably the biggest upgrade that they would need is something on the defensive side of the ball. But I will point this out too. Last 4 weeks, Joe Flacco has had the 4th highest uncatchable, inaccurate pass rate in the NFL. He's also had just the 13th plus accuracy throws that we've charted in the NFL. So like a plus accuracy isn't just like, okay, like, yeah, you hit the guy, where he was able to catch the football. It's like, okay, you threw the ball to where you hit your receiver in stride, away from coverage, gave him the ability to have a lot of yards after catch. That's a plus accuracy throw. So Flacco has been outside the top 10, middle of the pack when it has come to those plus accuracy throws, but specifically it's been the heavy drop off and the high inaccurate uncatchable passes that Flacco has thrown over the last month. That's where I think Joe Burrow is different. That's where I think it's not the spectacular throws that the Bengals haven't had. I think that they've actually had those things, surprisingly, with Joe Flacco in the lineup. But it's those, on a throw-to-throw basis. How accurate are the passes? Are you giving your wide receivers a chance? Like, that's what Joe Burrow is all about. And so with him getting back into the lineup, this might be foolish, but I really do think that even without T. Higgins in this game, it's just going to be elevated for the group. There's something to the incredible confidence that you have when your all-pro type of quarterback is now back in the lineup for you. And the attitude that Joe Burrow has had the whole time of, yeah, okay, like, so we're probably not going to make the playoffs. I mean, I don't care. We're not eliminated yet, and I'm a football player. I'm going to go out there and play if I'm healthy. So I think just that attitude, rallying around Burrow, being their quarterback once again, I think the Bengals get a little boost here. And like I said, I don't know if this is foolish of me, if I'm just drinking too much of that Kool-Aid of the hype of Burrow coming back, but I'm actually going to go with Cincinnati. I'm going to take Cincinnati 24-20. I just don't love how the Ravens have been playing on offense. It feels like it's been very, very inconsistent. Lamar Jackson isn't involving his legs in the run game nearly as much as he has throughout his entire career. Perhaps the linebackers continue to struggle so much that the tight ends become a major factor in this game, and the Ravens end up winning it. But with Burrow out there, I'm taking Cincinnati in this one. I'm going to take Cincinnati to win.
I don't know if it's foolish, but it's too foolish for me to do. I'm not doing it. I think the Ravens are hot right now. I really like the way their defense is playing ever since they realigned it and into the ideal way that they needed to ever since the Alohi Gilman trade. And I think they'll find enough with Derrick Henry on the ground with the tight ends in the passing game. I want to take the Ravens at home. If it was in Cincinnati, I might think a little differently of it, but give me the Ravens 27-17.
All right, before we get to our next game, I talked about this a little bit at the top of the show, but the Black Friday sale is going on right now, guys. It's only going on for a couple more days. 40% off that PFF Plus subscription. We've already thrown a ton of numbers at you here on the show, and once again, like I always say, you guys can see all of this stuff for yourself with a PFF Plus subscription, and you can get it now for $6 a month if you get that 40% off for an annual subscription using the promo code Black Friday. That's how you get it. So make sure you go to subscribe.pff.com, and you guys can see that over on the website. You use the player prop tool, the fantasy football advice, the free agency tools. When we have free agency and the draft coming up with the mock draft simulator, you can run as many mock drafts as you want to make your team better. All that great stuff using the promo code Black Friday to get yourself 40% off. Bears and Eagles. Where are we starting with this game, Dalton?
I think there's a very simple factor that could decide this game. Look, the Bears defense leads the league in takeaways and interceptions. 24 takeaways total, 16 of them interceptions. And look, for as much as we complain about the Eagles and they're not that explosive, they're not running the ball well, this and that, they still have a lot of wins because they don't give the football away at all. Only 6 turnovers all year and only 1 interception from Jalen Hurts, playing a safe brand of football, a 1% turnover-worthy play rate. That is the best among all qualified quarterbacks. I really think the game could just come down to that, more so than any specific matchup on the offensive side for the Eagles against the Bears defense. I don't think the Bears defense is consistently great, but Dennis Allen's unit knows how to take the football away. If the Eagles can prevent that from happening, as they do most weeks, then I think they're going to be fine because the Bears defense still needs some work. We'll see if the run game can get going against that Bears defensive line. The secondary has been playing better of late, in part because they get their hands on the football, but I really think this game could just come down to turnovers. If the Eagles continue to not turn the football over and play that safe brand of football they do, I think they put the Bears defense in a tough spot.
Yeah, speaking of turnovers, I mean, Caleb's only have 1 turnover-worthy play under pressure over the last month. And so you look at a defense with Vic Fangio that knows how to dial up the pressure, whether it's a regular front or blitzing or whatever it is. I mean, I feel like they really know how to get after the quarterback, and they know how to do that well, but Caleb just hasn't really put the ball in harm's way under pressure. Obviously, we talked about last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers how he had those 3 turnover-worthy plays that were not great from him, but specifically under pressure, I think that he has been pretty reliable. So it's been a nice trend for Caleb overall, even though last week there was a little bump in the road with all those turnovers that he had against the Steelers. He still got the win, so that was great for them. But when it comes to the Bears versus Eagles matchup specifically, I think everybody thinks of Quinyon Mitchell. They think of Cooper DeJean. They think of Reed Blankenship. They think of what Zach Bond and Jahad Campbell are in coverage in the middle of that defense. And they think that, okay, really good coverage unit that we have in Philadelphia. And I think for the most part they are. But that other cornerback spot, specifically the one that's been occupied by Adoree Jackson, has been a struggle, especially last week. When you look at Adoree Jackson last week before he went out of the game with concussion-like symptoms, 32.0 coverage grade. 6 targets, 4 catches allowed, 64 yards, 1 touchdown allowed. I mean, that's the guy that you pick on. And Jackson was a full participant at practice earlier this week, and so it looks like he's going to play here on Black Friday. And I just look at the Bears, and I've been very complimentary over the last really month or so, couple of weeks, month or so, at how this team is able to utilize now all of the passing weapons that are at their disposal. It's Rome Odunze, it's DJ Moore, it's Luther Burden, it's Colson Loveland, it's Cole Kmet, it's the guys out of the backfield as well. They could just go to so many different players. And with that being the case, I think that Ben Johnson spoke earlier this season about how he doesn't love the 50-50 passes, the contested catch opportunities, because he's like, I'd rather just scheme something up to where it's an easier throw. So I don't always love relying on that. I think they're going to take a look at the weakness in Philadelphia, again, specifically that third cornerback spot, and say, how do we scheme up this offense to where we are putting that defender in conflict constantly? And so I think this is shaping up to be a fantastic game. If Caleb continues to play the way that he has for the greater part of this month, I think this is going to be a really good game. But I do think that Philly wins it. I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles 24-20. I know I feel like with the Eagles blowing a 21-point lead last week, everybody's ready to dance on their grave. See, I told you Philly's no good. Yeah, look, I still think this is one of the most talented teams in the NFL. Obviously, blowing a 21-point lead, nobody wants to do, but I still think this is a strong team. I actually still think they get it done here, mainly because of the point that you brought up, where I just don't think Jalen Hurts puts the ball in harm's way very often. And I think that is how the Bears have taken advantage of a lot of teams this season. So playing a really good team, which starts a really tough stretch here for Chicago, I wonder if this is going to be a little bit of a wake-up call for them going up against a really good team to see what they're like down the stretch as well. I'll go Philadelphia here 24-21.
I think the Eagles, their conservative approach in general is going to keep this game close. I don't see them running away with it because we just haven't seen them run away with games very often, if at all, this year. The two questions you have for the Bears offense are the war in the trenches you're about to see between the Bears offensive line and the Eagles defensive line is going to be outstanding. You talk about Darnell Wright against Jalen Phillips on the edge, the interior with Drew Dahlman and those guys against Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, Moro Ajomo. How often, I should say, can the Bears lean on that offensive line to run the football effectively? And then the question for when you're going against Ben Johnson is, how can you defend the middle of the field? The Eagles are still one of the best teams in the NFL defending the middle of the field. I think this is going to be a pretty ugly defensive game. Honestly, I think it's going to be conservative on both sides. I don't think Johnson wants to expose Caleb Williams to too much, especially early in the game. I'm taking Philadelphia 22-19.
The Texans and the Colts in battle this Sunday, as we travel a Sunday slate in Week 13 here in the NFL. A couple of weeks ago, I think this would have been an easy game to pick, especially with this game being in Indianapolis. I think everybody would have just said, oh, yeah, here's the Colts. They're going to run through them again. Texans don't have the offense. They don't have the offensive line. The defense is good, but is it good enough? And now I feel like a lot of that stuff is going in Houston's favor as of late. So you talking about Houston here, or you want to talk about Indianapolis?
I think when Houston has the football, and we're not sure yet if C.J. Stroud is going to be back or if it'll be Davis Mills one more time, but you're going to see some really fun battles on the outside, some one-on-one matchups. Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, Christian Kirk, Jalen Knoll against the Colts secondary that's obviously added Sauce Gardner and gotten Shavarius Ward back healthy recently. Really good trio of corners they have with those two and Kenny Moore. And what the Colts have done since they've traded for Gardner, reasonably so, is they've gone to a lot more man coverage. Before they traded for him, less than a 25% man coverage rate, 13th in the NFL. Lou Anarumo getting a little more aggressive than the old defensive coordinator, but not to the extent that he's done their last couple of games. 42%, second in the NFL, just behind the Cleveland Browns. He's taken full advantage and had a plan of what to do with Sauce Gardner in this secondary. It's more man coverage. It's more aggressive at the line of scrimmage, more press up near the line of scrimmage. So you're talking about, I think, a lot of fun battles, especially between Collins and Gardner, that are going to happen on the outside. But don't forget about these slot threats in Kirk and Jalen Knoll going against Kenny Moore. I think it's really going to be big to see if the Texans can create and isolate those one-on-one matchups, especially if Davis Mills is playing again. That's really been kind of his area of expertise in these three starts, is finding one-on-one matchups on the outside to take advantage of. But you're going to see some fun battles out there between the Texans wide receiving core and the Colts cornerbacks with all the man coverage they're playing right now.
It's fun to see. It's fun to see that evolution for defense coordinators truly taking the phrase like, well, we'll call the scheme for the strengths of our players. And I don't think every coach always means that, especially as much as they should. But certainly this is a situation where when you have a player who can win one-on-one as your CB1, that allows you to sort of change your coverage and get more aggressive. So that's cool to see. On the Colts side of things for offense, and we've talked about this over the last couple of weeks, but getting into more of these numbers specifically, Daniel Jones is behind only Trevor Lawrence since week 9 with 10 turnover-worthy plays. Now, the difference there is that the Jags have played 4 games since week 9. The Colts have only played 3. So really, when you look at it from that stretch, the most turnover-worthy plays per game average over the last month, Daniel Jones is the worst in the NFL at that number. So obviously never a statistic that you want to boast, but when you categorize some of those turnover-worthy plays, only 5 of them are passing. 5 of them are fumble related. So obviously he's got to, first and foremost, hang on to the ball better, not fumble the football. That's an easier fix here. The tougher fix is the 5 turnover-worthy plays that he has had passing have all come when he is under pressure. All of them, all 5. So unfortunately, we're kind of starting to write the book on Daniel Jones right now, whereas at the beginning of the year, no one was really able to get after him. The offensive line was playing better. The run game was so effective that they could have teams on their heels and they couldn't be more aggressive to attack the pocket because, well, they'd just be able to run around the blitz and get to the outside, and they were able to counter that very, very well. But like we've talked about before, if they can't run the football, if they're struggling to run the football, then it's not just putting the ball in Daniel Jones' hands. It's sort of the domino effect that happens after that. When you put them in these more obvious passing situations and you know they're going to drop back, send some extra pressure. And Daniel Jones has been known to put that ball at risk. And I think that's something that does not bode well this week, right? This is the best defense in the NFL right now when it comes to a points per game average. 12 weeks into the season, heading into week 13. They're top 5 in the NFL at overall defensive grade. They have 2 of the best defensive ends in the NFL in Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter, best edge rush duo in the NFL for sure. So I think the pressure's coming. And unfortunately, until Jones shows me that he can handle that pressure, this even goes back to his days with the Giants where this was an issue for him. So I'm actually going to take the Texans in this game. Davis Mills has been playing well enough to where I feel pretty good about this, and I think it'll be close because it's in Indianapolis. I feel like this will be a really tight game, but give me the Texans 21, Colts 20.
This game, I think the Texans at this point, they kind of are what they are. They're playing better. They're waiting on C.J. Stroud to get back. The defense is outstanding. It's maybe the best pass defense in football this year. This game is going to be won or lost by the Colts on early downs. If Jonathan Taylor can dominate, put him in good down and distance situations, get those explosive runs against what's still a relatively softer Houston Texans interior defensive line, but their linebackers have been supporting it well, so they haven't been too bad on the ground, actually 6th in the league in run defense grade. If Taylor can dominate on early downs, then the Colts will be in a good spot here and they can find a way to win this game. If the Texans stop the run in the same way that Kansas City did last week, and if their defensive line can dominate in the same way a few weeks ago that Pittsburgh did in Pittsburgh against the Colts, then I think the Colts have a real problem here because you're right. I don't want Daniel Jones on 3rd and 8 very much. I don't want anybody on 3rd and 8 very much against this Texans defense, but especially him knowing that he's not willing to throw the ball downfield into tight windows, right, against this secondary. I'm worried about that. And if that's the biggest question we're asking is at the quarterback spot against a defense like this, I have issues. I mean, you saw after the first drive of the game, the Texans shut down the Bills running game as well as the game went on. So I've got the Texans also 20-17. I think they overwhelm Jones and win this one.
Wow. Okay, so the Colts are, as of right now, we're recording the show on a Wednesday, favored by 4.5, and we both just took the Houston Texans to win outright there. The Jags traveling to Tennessee to take on the Tennessee Titans. They've gotten a spark from some of their young guys recently, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Tennessee has. I'm interested to hear what you think about this game. You want to talk about the Titans or Jacksonville here to kick this off?
Yeah, I mean, Cam Ward, Xavier Restrepo, we've seen Chimere Dike play well lately. They played a good fourth quarter against the against the Seahawks last week, and that's kind of the state of what we've been looking at with the Titans offense is, they might get like one good quarter out of them per game, but you need to play the full 60 minutes, especially against this Jags secondary that after slumping for a bit in the middle of the season, especially when Devin Lloyd was injured out a couple games at linebacker, they've kind of picked things back up in coverage. From weeks 1 through 5, they were 2nd in the league in coverage grade behind Kansas City. Then for a few weeks, they were dead last. Devin Lloyd was hurt. They were struggling to defend the middle of the field. The interceptions kind of went away. And we had a hard time covering teams on the back end, albeit played some really good teams like the Rams and Seahawks in there. And now the last couple weeks, they've gotten back into that top 6 range as far as coverage grade goes. It just feels like Anthony Campanile is making some nice adjustments on defense, really figuring out how to operate with this team, how to, with Greg Newsome out there. Remember the trade? They traded away Tyson Campbell. They've got Greg Newsome out there at corner, Jerryon Jones, Jordan Lewis, and you've got Devin Lloyd back healthy at linebacker. That's really helped the middle of the field coverage. I just think you have this kind of up and down thing, but it looks like their secondary, their coverage unit is back on the upswing here just in time for a game against the Tennessee Titans, who right now, look, they are struggling to run the football. They're not running it very well. So Cam Ward's going to, if the Titans are going to win a game, it's going to have to be on the back of Cam Ward. But now he's playing this Jags secondary while they're hot again. I'd be a little bit worried about that. And if Ward puts the ball in danger at all, this thing could be a runaway.
So I mentioned this, that outside of Daniel Jones, when you look at since week 9, Trevor Lawrence has the most turnover-worthy plays of any quarterback in the NFL. So since week 9, Trevor Lawrence, 11 turnover-worthy plays. That's the most. I think Lawrence has made good plays as well. It's not like it's all been bad from Lawrence. But I think I see a lot of this frustration from Jags fans on social media that this is just kind of who Trevor Lawrence is. And it might just be who he is in his NFL career. He's just going to have a decently even turnover-worthy play to big-time throw percentage. And I think I mentioned this to you on the Monday show. If you look at the last 3 years, those numbers have been going in the opposite direction of what you want. The big-time throws, I think he was right around 5.5% 2 years ago. Next year, it's like high 4s. This year, low 3s. Okay, when you look at turnover-worthy play percentage, this year, or I should say 2 years ago, it was low 3s, and it was high 3s. Now it's low 4s. So that number is going in the wrong. He is throwing more turnover-worthy plays per pass, and he's throwing less big-time throws per pass, and it just kind of feels like that's the story of him right now. He's going to be a quarterback that giveth and taketh away. Both one of those two things, or actually both of those two things, it feels like could happen within a game. With that said, you need to have the right run game to supplement what Trevor Lawrence is doing. You can't put too much on his plate, because if you do, I think that that you'll get the good, but you also get the bad. And which one's going to mean more? You don't want to roll that dice. So instead, Liam Cohen, who was great at establishing what Tampa did well in the rushing attack last year when he was their offensive coordinator, he's doing the same here for Jacksonville, finding out what that identity is. 65 of their running snaps have been from zone concepts over the last 4 weeks specifically. So 65, which is the most, it's the top 2 for them, have been those zone rushing concepts, outside zone, inside zone. Travis Etienne, and Bashal Tutin, both of their highest rushing grades come from outside zone stuff. So inside zone, sometimes, it can work a little bit like power concepts, because you could get those, double team blocks in the middle. And so sometimes that could be a little bit similar in how the running backs are seeing the field. But outside zone, that's a totally different sort of comfort and feel and confidence of how you're rushing the football. That seems to be where they operate very, very well. Getting out to the sideline, blocking, getting those offensive linemen, those more athletic offensive linemen out on the hoof and being able to block towards the sideline. I think they just need to continue to lean into that. And if you can't stop outside zone, well, then all of a sudden you've got an issue. And I think Jeffrey Simmons is playing really, really well for the Tennessee Titans in the middle. He's having a career year in a lot of different areas. But with Jacksonville loving to get their run game out towards the sideline, I think that bodes exactly towards what they can do to really handle and control the Titans on that side of the ball, is run away from Jeffrey Simmons. I just don't think that the Titans have been good enough at rallying to the football when things get away from the trenches and when they get away from Jeffrey Simmons. I am going to go with Jacksonville in this one. I'll go 23-21, and I'll keep it close out of respect for how I think Tennessee has been getting a little bit better here.
I'll keep it close as well. I've got the Jags close-ish, 20-13. I think defense is going to win the day on both sides here, and I think to your point about running to the edges, the Jags, I know I've been all over this, but Brenton Strange coming back is so big for their offense, and the ability for Liam Cohen to get back into 12 personnel and widen things out even further and allow his backs to bounce outside of these tight ends. Johnny Munt's been a really good run blocker blocker. Brenton Strange, one of the best blocking tight ends in the league, as well as giving you that receiving threat out there. I think that makes a big difference in this game. I think it's going to be a little bit ugly because I do think the interior of that Titans defense, especially the pass rush, can cause some problems for Trevor Lawrence in the pocket. But I think the Jaguars defense wins the day here, and they find just enough points to come out with a hard-fought defensive win.
Got to talk about Rams and Panthers next, because we got to talk about, okay, what's next for Bryce Young after not a great performance that we saw on Monday Night Football. What's next for the Rams? But before we do that, there's some things that school didn't teach you when you were younger, right? How to navigate the financial world, and specifically how to navigate for your kids. I think that's one thing that maybe you wish you learned a little bit more about. When you set up an investment account for your kids, though, with Fabric by Gerber Life, that's when you know you made a good decision. Fabric by Gerber Life, it was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With the kids' investment account from Fabric, you guys can start investing in your child's future today. Kids can't invest while they're minors, but this specific UGMA Kids Investment Account allows you to invest on their behalf and gives their investments so much more time to grow. It's all online. Setting up an account could take you as little as just 5 minutes. You started with investing with as little as $1 a day, and then you manage your child's account and monitor those investments right from your phone. No contribution limits to it. It's got multiple tax advantages. It's all SIPC insured with $500,000. It's got no commission fees to it, just a low flat monthly maintenance fee. You can use the funds for anything too. When they're younger, you can dip into it for tuition, books, summer camps, after school activities, sporting events, things like that. And then when they're young adults, maybe you're helping them buy their first car, buy their first house, start a business, whatever that looks like. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL, MEET, fabric.com/PFFNFL. The portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You can learn more at meetfabric.com. Panthers had an opportunity to take the NFC South against the San Francisco 49ers on Monday Night Football, but they fell short of that goal. Now they are still behind the Buccaneers. It doesn't get any easier this week as they're hosting what many believe is the best team in the NFL in the Los Angeles Rams. What are we talking about here for the Panthers, Dalton?
Well, if the Panthers are going to win this game and they're going to score more points than they did against San Fran, they've got to play well in the trenches. They've been doing that this year, especially in the run game. You look at an offensive line, despite some injuries that they've suffered throughout the year, that's 8th in PFF grade and 5th in run blocking grade, but you're going up against a monster of a defensive line with L.A., Jared Verse, Byron Young, Poona Ford, Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, all these guys they have up front. 2nd in the league overall, 2nd in the league in run defense grade. I think that's the Poona Ford addition there that has really made a big difference there. He was so good for the Chargers last year, and he was exactly what they were missing on their defensive line. So the Panthers, look, they're going to want to run the football. It's clear that it's just going to be inconsistent when it comes to Bryce Young throwing the ball downfield. You were hoping you would get maybe a second-half surge like you got last year after the Atlanta game, throwing for almost 450 yards, but struggled to throw the ball downfield against San Francisco. I would think the Panthers are going to be relatively conservative with their game plan, try to run the football, but the problem is this Rams defensive line, and then even their linebackers, Nate Landman especially, they've been really good at stopping the run at the second level. So the Panthers, I think you want to stay out of obvious passing situations and lean on this offensive line to try to physically dominate this game, but they've got a tough task in front of them.
It's hard to find a path where the Panthers win this game. It really is. Because if Carolina wins, they'd be bucking a lot of trends, not just their own, but also for the Rams. When you look at the Rams, okay, let me set the stage like this, Dalton. What do the Panthers want to do? They want to run the football, right? You mentioned, okay, they don't love putting a ton on Bryce Young's plate when they have. Outside of playing Atlanta twice, it's been very much a mixed bag. And you look at, if you take those 2 Atlanta games out, I mean, Bryce Young, like you said, just has not been reliable when it comes to throwing beyond 10, 15 yards. Being able to attack deep down the field. He just has not seen the ball and doesn't have that confidence right now in doing so outside of those 2 Falcon games that they played this season. So what did they wanted to do? They wanted to run the football. They wanted to hand it off to Rico Dowdle, and they got Chuba Hubbard more involved, especially as a receiver last game. But the problem is, when you look at the Rams, they are first in the NFL in points scored in the first quarter. The average there, it's 7.5. They scored more than a touchdown on average in the first quarter. They have an 82.6 overall offensive grade, which is third best in the NFL in the first quarter. And they have the third best EPA per play in the first quarter, as you would expect. All of that spells out the fact that if Carolina falters on their first couple of drives, or if they just don't happen to look as explosive, they don't get in the end zone, guess what? Now all of a sudden you're double digits down on the scoreboard, 2 scores down on the scoreboard, and then that totally takes the run out of it from just a game script perspective. When you look at the Panthers, their first quarter defense, they're 20th in overall points allowed in the first quarter, and then the overall defensive grade and EPA per play. So the Panthers have really have struggled, have been in the back half of the league in stopping teams in the first quarter, and the Rams are excellent at it. So all that to say, it's hard for me to think of it's hard for me to look at any of these numbers and think, outside of Bryce Young just looking way, way, way better than he has throughout most of the season, how does Carolina win this game? I don't really know, and I'm not picking them to. I'm picking the Rams. 31-17 is the final score that I have here. I just think that they're going to control the game because it goes too easily into what they like to do.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't like calling out blowouts generally, either here or on the college show, because I'm always trying to find ways that both teams can win, but I'm having a hard time finding a way the Panthers can win this game, even at home. I mean, their last home game against the Saints, it didn't look great either. I look at this game, I have it 35-10 Rams. I think this could be a runaway. I don't like this at all for this Panther defense. We don't know if J.C. Horn is going to play. I don't like it for the offense in the sense of Bryce Young having to make confident throws through this Rams team and this elite pass rush and a team that leads the league in coverage grade. I'm not a big fan of this matchup. I think the Panthers, it's going to be a tough one for them at home against I'm with you. I think the Rams are the best team in football.
I mean, all due respect to Brock Purdy. Matthew Stafford's not throwing the turnover-worthy plays that Brock Purdy threw this past Monday. And Carolina still was not able to take advantage of that. So it's just, again, it's very hard. Perhaps we come back on this show on Monday for the grade release show and we just go, well, that didn't go the way we thought it would, but there's not a lot of football that has been played 12 weeks through the season that tells you that Carolina is going to beat the Los Angeles Rams this weekend. We shall see. The Arizona Cardinals traveling to Tampa Bay to take on a beaten-up Bucs team. It looks like there's a chance for Baker Mayfield to still play in this game. I'll have more on him in a second. Teddy Bridgewater, it kind of sounds like he's going to take most of the first-team reps all week, but Todd Bowles said that's more because of just soreness for Baker Mayfield. It's not like he exactly needs the practice. He needs to go out and play better, which, again, I'll get to in a second. But Dalton, overall, what do you think about this game? You want to talk about the Cardinals or Tampa side of things?
I think the first thing you have to focus on if you're the Bucs defense is how in the world do we stop Trey McBride at tight end? And he'll line up all over the place. He can beat you over the middle of the field, which is often a problem for the Bucs. And how do you match up with him? Do you go man-to-man? Is it a lot of Antoine Winfield? Do you bracket him? Is it a lot of zone coverage? I'm curious to see how Todd Bowles goes about this, because if you don't stop Trey McBride, you're going to have a big problem. This is a guy who leads all tight ends in receiving grade. He leads them all in yards. He leads them all in catches. He leads them in contested catches. And he's second behind only the rookie Harold Fannin Jr. in missed tackles forced. You look, this is the center of their offense, right? And the Cardinals, they don't run the football very well. I'm not going to expect them really to run the football very well in any given week, especially against a Bucs run defense that's still pretty good. This has got to be the number one priority for Todd Bowles. And how do you prepare to at least slow down Trey McBride? I think the Bucs can match up. For as much as they struggled last week, I do think they can match up reasonably well with the Cardinals on the outside. It's not, Adams and Nacua, that's Wilson and maybe or maybe not Marvin Harrison isn't quite Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, but Trey McBride is a serious problem on the inside or wherever he lines up on the field. To me, all eyes have to be on him. If he has a big game, the Bucs could have a real problem on their hands.
When you look at the Cardinals, they're sitting here at 3-8, and I think there's a lot of people who would say, well, of course Tampa's going to win this game, and I'm just not so convinced. Obviously, you have the non-throwing shoulder injury to Baker Mayfield, and that sort of has its own complications and elements into this game. But after Baker started this year on what felt like an MVP type of trajectory through the first 5 or so weeks of the season, Dalton, he has been quietly one of the least effective and reliable quarterbacks in the NFL over the last 6 weeks. When you look at Mayfield, this is a stat that we brought up a little bit earlier this week, that uncatchable inaccurate pass percentage. 28.5% over the last 6 weeks. That's dead last in the NFL out of 33 qualifying quarterbacks, guys who have had at least 100 dropbacks over the last 6 weeks. He's dead last in obviously like a bad way. Like he has the highest uncatchable inaccurate pass percentage over the last 6 weeks. 53.1 accuracy percentage, which just means that obviously you threw an accurate ball that was catchable for your wide receivers. That 53.1% is just 31st out of 33 quarterbacks. And when you look at those plus accuracy throws, so it's the throws that are not only accurate and catchable, but ones that are away from coverage, really pinpoint, allow your wide receivers to catch it in stride and give them an opportunity for yards after the catch, 13.3%, that's just 26th out of 33. So Mayfield has been very poor over these last 6 weeks. And I've watched the games live. I knew that there would be a handful of throws where I remember watching and it's like, man, he's not hitting that and he should. But these numbers are even worse than I thought. He's not playing anywhere close to the level that he was at the beginning of the season. And for as much as he is trying to overcome not having Chris Godwin out there for the most part, not having Mike Evans out there, some drops amongst his wide receivers, some rookie mistakes, some young mistakes from his wide receivers, not having Bucky Irving to be able to hand the ball off to, like all of that is context and is important to remember. Mayfield also independently has not played well over the last month and a half. And if he doesn't play better, I think this team continues to struggle. So given the fact that he has struggled as much as he has, given the fact that he is even more hurt now with that non-throwing shoulder, so you wonder if he's really going to be wanting to take off and run the ball because he's probably not going to want to take hits. There's a chance Bucky Irving's back in this game. We will see, but I'm actually going to take the Cardinals, given how much Tampa struggled last week on defense, and given the struggles of Baker Mayfield, I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals to win 23-21 in a close one.
Wow, you're losing faith in them, Trevor. Man.
It's hard for me to have now Hassan Reddick. If Hassan Reddick practiced, so if he comes back, obviously I think that's a big deal. I think if Bucky comes back, that's a big deal. But this Cardinals team is showing more fight than their record indicates. And I think this game's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. The Bucs are at home. The Cardinals are getting 3 points in this one. So it's somewhat close to a coin flip or a 1.5 point favorite if this was on a neutral field. So I think that Vegas believes this one's pretty close as well. And I'm going to take the Cardinals in this game. I just do not like what I saw from Tampa last week.
I do think it will be close because the Cardinals, you're right, they've been playing close games all year, and Jacoby Brissett has played good football for the most part, right? But I think getting to go back to Tampa, you're starting a 3-game homestand against a little bit easier schedule, and the Cardinals also have an issue closing out games, and I think their inability to run the football is going to be a problem. I'm actually going to take the Bucs here 24-20, and that's even if Teddy Bridgewater has to play. I think he can go in and be efficient enough to get things done, and this offense maybe even needs to be scaled back a little bit, maybe even for a week with a guy like Bridgewater, because the one thing you're seeing with Mayfield, you mentioned the lack of accuracy, but it's also deep ball variance, right? He was having so much success the first 5 weeks of the season with the deep ball. Well, that can swing back the other way. The regression to the mean can kind of bring you right back. And once he lost the deep ball, then it's kind of cratered on him, right? So I think the Bucs do need to find a way to manufacture offense a little bit better. And the fact that the Cardinals to me are too one-dimensional on offense is a problem. I'm going to take the Bucs to win this one at home.
Cardinals also, forgot to mention this, could be getting Trey Benson back for this game as well, which would give them some extra juice in the run game, hopefully not make them as one-dimensional as you mentioned. So, look, I hope you're right. You know ball, as I've often said. You're taking the Buccaneers, you know ball. I hope you're right on this one, but I'm worried about this one for Tampa. They just have to play a lot better. Sticking in the AFC South, or the NFC South, excuse me, the Falcons are traveling to your New York Jets. Take on the Jets here in New York. You want to talk about the Falcons? Or you want to talk about the Jets here?
Let's talk about the Falcons offense real quick. And obviously the engine of this offense, if they can stick with the run game for the most part with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, with Bijan Robinson, with Tyler Algier, if they can, get their 150, 200 yards rushing they need in this game, they will probably win it. But if they get into obvious passing situations, they might have a problem in this game with Drake London doubtful to play. It doesn't look like he's going to play for the second consecutive week. And the Jets, they run the ninth highest rate of man coverage in the NFL. Aaron Glenn, Steve Wilkes, they like to get aggressive with this defense. They traded away Sauce Gardner, but they're staying aggressive with Brandon Stevens, Azareye'h Thomas on the outside, and Jarvis Brownlee in the slot. And when you look at the Falcons against man coverage, this has been a real problem for them this year as a team. This includes any production that Drake London had. 25th in receiving grade, 32nd, dead last in EPA per pass and completion percentage, and 31st in yards per route run against man-to-man coverage. And Kirk Cousins, look, he had a good game last week. He threw well. They got the play-action concepts going, but the Saints run one of the lowest man coverage rates in the league on their defense. Brandon Staley, a zone-heavy coach, going to be a more aggressive approach from the Jets in this game, and I think it could cause this Falcons receiving core some issues. Somebody's got to be able to separate one-on-one from press man coverage. If they don't, this game could be tighter than you think and really an ugly defensive game.
You know, the Jets kind of are what they are, right? We've talked about the Jets for the last 12 weeks, and even with Tyrod Taylor in there now, they're going to pass the football more, so I think that gives them a better chance to win football games and look a little bit more competitive. But the story is the same with the New York Jets. They run the ball well. They have a chance to keep it close. They don't. That's about it. I mean, Tyrod Taylor, around a 46 passing grade that he had last week. As I was kind of looking at the Jets offense, obviously, like, Garrett Wilson's been banged up, and you look at who's out there. It's A.D. Mitchell, it's John Mechie. I mean, these are guys who weren't even on the team a couple of weeks ago. I mean, he's throwing to new guys there. The constant that I think they have is they've got 3 offensive linemen that you really believe in. And I just kind of wanted to take the time to shout them out with Armand Membu, Olu Fashanu, and Joe Tippmann. I think those guys have been really good this season, and just specifically over the last month. All of them have pass blocking grades above 77 over the last 3 games. And so these guys, to me, are cornerstone type of a players. John Simpson's a free agent for them. They could be bringing him back. Obviously, Elijah Vera Tucker is as well. He hasn't played for them all year. But the Jets have a really solid O-line foundation for whatever their game plan is going into next year and the year after, with all of those first-round picks to hopefully get the quarterback of the future there for them. So honestly, like, on a week-to-week basis, I wanted to highlight the O-line just as a long-term sort of a shout-out to them, but also the Falcons, it's a young group of defensive linemen who, when they seem to play well, this Falcons team wins. When they don't, I think that's when you start to really get in trouble. And I think that the Jets actually have the group to neutralize guys like Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. and Brandon Dorlus and those guys who have been playing well for them as of late and were a big reason why they were able to go into New Orleans and get a win last week. I do ultimately still think the Falcons win, just because I don't have a lot of faith in this Jets team and this Jets offense to be able to get it done. But I think it's decently close. I'm going to go with the Falcons 20 and the Jets 16 here.
I think you do get a defensive game here. Curious to see. I think it's a great call in that matchup, especially off the edge with Membu and Fashanu going against Pierce and Walker. Arnold Ebikete's been in that mix. The veteran Leonard Floyd has been in that mix. I think you're going to have a really fascinating pass rush matchup, not only on the field, but schematically too. Jeff Ulbrich, going into last week, had the second highest pass blitz rate in the league, and he kind of laid off the gas against the Saints and just kept sending 4, and they were getting pressure anyway, especially with those defensive ends. So I'm curious to see which way he goes on that Jeff Ulbrich revenge game, of course. But, you know, are they going to blitz Tyrod Taylor? Is he going to sit back in coverage and just kind of not allow these receivers any separation? Because we know the Jets' receiving core has struggled. I do think you get a defensive game, a low-scoring game, but the Falcons in their run game and their defense get enough done to win it 17-10 Atlanta.
All right, before we get on to our next game, this episode, sponsored by our friends over at BetterHelp. As days get shorter, a little bit colder, it can really take a toll on sometimes how we feel. This time of year, it can be tough for a lot of people. It's a great reminder to reach out, check in with the people that you care about. Could be things like giving your grandma a call, writing a letter to a friend, finally grabbing lunch with somebody that maybe you haven't seen in a while. We're all healthier when we stay connected and when we have that community and support. Just like reaching out to a friend, starting therapy can take a little bit of courage, but once you do, you might find yourself wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? BetterHelp makes it easy to start therapy. You'll be matched with a licensed therapist based on your needs and preferences, so you guys can focus on your growth and goals. Over 12 years of experience, they got more than 30,000 therapists, over 5 million people helped worldwide. Average live sessions have a rating of 4.9 out of 5 stars. And if you're not happy with your match, you can switch therapists at any time, no hassle. This month, don't wait to reach out, whether that's checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself. BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. Our listeners get 10% off of their first month at BetterHelp.com/PFF. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/PFF. San Francisco 49ers coming off a Monday Night Football win, traveling to Cleveland to take on another team coming off a big-time win in the Cleveland Browns. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns here to start, Dalton. What do you got?
Well, of course, the spotlight will be on Shedeur Sanders coming off his first NFL start, first NFL win, and he looked okay outside of the really bad interception he threw to Charles Snowden in the first half. He was okay. He did the fundamental things that allowed the offense to at least function, which in Cleveland is at times feels like a miracle, right? Just to see a functional offense. But you're talking about going against a Raider team that was also really struggling, and Quinshon Judkins also ran for 2 touchdowns, and I think that's where the 49ers focus has to start. We've been talking about this Niners run defense all year, and defensive line hasn't been great, been really banged up, but the second level guys have been able to make tackles and prevent explosive runs. So when you look at Quinshon Judkins, you look at 2 things: yards after contact and explosive runs. He's 10th in the NFL right now in yards after contact per carry, 3.4 yards after contact per carry, and 17th in explosive runs. You look at the Niners run defense, they allow the 5th fewest yards after contact per carry and the 6th lowest explosive run rate at just 9.4%. I think it's really simple here. Stop the run. Don't let Judkins go for 100 plus and score a couple touchdowns. Make Shedeur Sanders beat you. Make the offensive line beat you. Make the receiving core beat you, right? I mean, obviously he's in the spotlight. The home crowd is going to be charged up with him out there, but I would much rather the Browns beat me throwing the football, regardless of who their quarterback is, than I would having Judkins run me over in the run game.
Yep, I think that's certainly the recipe that they're going to go into this game with. On the other side of things, man, Cleveland all year long felt like just had one of the best defenses in the NFL. Obviously, Myles Garrett and his season speaks for itself. It's historic. It's Defensive Player of the Year worthy. Feels like we're well on our way to both of those things. And, you know, when it comes to the 49ers and Brock Purdy, over the last 2 games, Brock Purdy's got 5 turnover-worthy plays and 1 big-time throw. When you look at his passing grade beyond 10 yards over the last 2 weeks since he's been back in that lineup, 46.0 passing grade. I mean, like, that's just – I think that Purdy sort of gets this label as this gunslinger, but I think anybody would tell you, like, it's not like he has a great NFL arm. And in fact, I would tell you that Purdy has probably the lowest tier of arm talent that you would need to start at the NFL level. What he does is he wins a lot with anticipation. You know, he's able to throw touch passes very, very well. But over these last 5 weeks, you have seen him put the ball in harm's way way too easily, especially last Monday against Carolina with all of those interceptions. And even the week before, we talked about this on the review show on Monday. There were a couple of passes where he didn't have any interceptions, I believe, 2 weeks ago, but there were 2 passes specifically where you go, okay, these easily could have been picked off if the defender was sort of in a different situation. I think 2 guys were maybe there at the same time on one of them, and I can't remember what the second one was, but he has been putting the ball in harm's way, and I don't love it. I just don't love how he is seeing the field right now. I think it's going to make for a much closer game because this is a defense that is aggressive. They've got players in the secondary that know how to create those turnovers and change those turnover-worthy plays to actual turnovers, especially when you get the pressure that Cleveland's able to generate up front. I think this is going to be a very low-scoring type of a game. The over-under of 36.5 certainly speaks to that as well. And I'm going to go with a number that's right around where the line is at the Niners being favored by 4.5. I'm going to go San Francisco 17, Cleveland 13, but I think this is an absolute defensive slugfest here, Dalton.
I'm with you. I think it could be even reminiscent of a game, I believe it was 2 years ago, where the 49ers, yes, they went into Cleveland and lost 19-17. Now, I'm going to take San Francisco to win, but I'm with you. In Cleveland, this is a very dangerous game. The Browns can match the 49ers in the run game, which actually hasn't been that efficient this year. And you mentioned Brock Purdy. Of his 8 turnover-worthy plays this season, 6 of them have come on passes of 20 or more air yards, 6 of them on the deep ball. So the deep ball is really not working for him. And against a Browns team that plays more man coverage than any team in the league, he's going to have to make some tight window throws, or it could be a struggle. I'm taking the Niners in a very low scoring game because I still don't believe in this Cleveland offense very much. 49ers 14-10.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 14-10. I think it's going to be a low scoring affair. It really, to be honest with you, this game really actually, to me, comes down to Shedeur Sanders. Now, you sit there and be like, oh, that's an obvious because he plays quarterback. But if Shedeur stacks what he did last week and is better, like gets better, more comfortable, hits a couple more throws of 15 or more yards, even, again, if it's just a couple more, I really do think Cleveland's got a chance to upset the Niners in this game. But it will require Sanders, again, taking a next step from what he did the previous week. If he's able to do that, man, I think that they could absolutely get the upset.
I think a big factor there too is he's really been struggling against the blitz, but like the Raiders last week, the Niners have one of the lowest blitz rates in the league.
Yeah, they just don't do it.
Robert Saleh just doesn't blitz quarterbacks a whole lot, and I would assume he's probably not going to in this game. He loves believing in his 4 guys up front that can rush the passer, and against the Browns offensive line, I get it, but maybe Shadour's got at least some window of opportunity against another team that doesn't blitz a whole lot either.
The Teron Armstead Bowl here with the New Orleans Saints traveling to Miami to take on the Miami Dolphins, the 2 teams that our guy Teron Armstead played for his NFL career. This one's in Miami. What do we talk about here, Dalton? We talk about the Saints or the Dolphins to start this one?
I think the problem for the Saints, whether it be because of play calling or a lack of production, and there's a serious lack of production I'm going to get into, is that whether it's been Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shuck, they've just been hung out to dry. They've been in way too many obvious passing situations, either falling behind in games or because they can't run the football still. And I mean, the offensive line getting a little bit better with some of those young guys, but they've had some injuries in the interior. And you look at this right here, I mean, 29th in rushing grade, 29th in run blocking grade, the yards per carries low, the worst explosive run rate in the NFL. Not sure. It sounds like Alvin Kamara is going to miss some time, so it could be Devin Neal, the rookie out of Kansas, starting for them at running back in this game. But you're looking at it against a Dolphins defense that has surged in recent weeks. Since week 6, they have the second highest run defense grade as a team in the NFL, only behind the LA Rams, and how good that defensive line has been. So I think you look at this and you look at it in the context of, okay, Tyler Shuck, you're on a one-dimensional team, and even that dimension as a rookie quarterback isn't great. They've got to find some way to run the football. This offense is going to continue to struggle to score.
I think on the Dolphins side of things, the obvious is to say, oh, well, they need to run the ball well. Their offense runs through Devon Achane, and it does, right? But specifically, I wanted to look into how they've had that success with Achane. And I think that some people would tell you, like, okay, well, it's obvious. They're just getting to the sideline, or they're just going to run a lot of outside zone. And they can do things like that. But specifically, I found that plays with a lead puller to the outside is where they have a ton of success. Achane has an elite 91.6 rushing grade when there is a lead puller to the outside. And I went back and I watched a lot of those plays. And a lot of times it could be, the tight end pinning whoever the end man on the line of scrimmage is, and the tackle actually being the one to pull out into space and be the lead blocker. They've done that a handful of times this year with Patrick Paul. Sometimes maybe it's a guard, just like a traditional counter play where they're just getting to the outside and they're letting those guys run through and even get wider than a normal counter play would be. That's really the big success when Miami wants to run the football and run it well. Yes, it's getting Devon Achane to the sideline, but it's allowing him to read sort of just one lead blocker. Be able to read this player. All right, he's going to kick this defender more to the outside sideline, so I'm going to cut it back and I'm going to go up the field that way. Or maybe it's, hey, this player he's pulling, but I can see him. He's taking a look at the linebacker. He's going to take out the linebacker who's chasing me to the sideline, and I'm going to go all the way up to the sideline, and I'm going to go up and further down the field that way. So him being able to read that singular puller gives Devon Achane a ton of confidence. And in this game specifically, I think that you've got good linebacker play with Demario Davis and what New Orleans can do there. But when you consistently ask these guys to get out in space and get to the sideline, you're then challenging the cornerbacks to get involved with the run game as well. And I think that that's where really Miami wants this team to be. I think they'll be able to control this one. You mentioned it's not talked about enough, the turnaround that they have had defending the run themselves this season after a really, really tough start. I'm going to say the Dolphins 23 and the Saints 17 here for this one.
I'm with you. I think it's a great call out. And look, the Dolphins' run game is based on athleticism, getting to the edges, speed from their backs. Obviously, Devon Achane's been one of the best in football very quietly this year. And they just know, I give credit to Mike McDaniel, they just know they're not going to get downhill and run between the tackles. It's not what they do foundationally anyway. And this year, especially with the injuries on their offensive line at the guard spots, they're just not going to get in there, and that's not where they're going to win. So I think it is really about, the run game is all about numbers and leverage. And when you run those pinpole concepts, You get leverage on defensive ends. You get leverage with guys cracking down and advancing to the second level. So I think it's a really good call. As often as they can run away from Demario Davis, whether it be with motion, checking things at the line of scrimmage, I think it's a great idea in this game. I've got Miami also. I also think the Saints just being that one-dimensional is a real problem for them, especially on the road. Dolphins 21, Saints 13.
I would agree with you there. The Vikings traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks here. No J.J. McCarthy in this game. Has he officially been ruled out, or is it just like we kind of assume he's going?
I don't think it's official, but it's probably 90% there.
Feels like he's not going to play in this game, which means Max Brosmer is going to get the nod if that is the case. Talk to me about Max Brosmer here for this matchup.
Coming from right down the road, you love your low moving costs, don't you, Trevor?
Yeah, baby. He's right at home. Well, he won't be for this game. They'll be in Seattle for this game.
Oh, well, true. Well, it's just the home state. That's close enough. We'll go with it. He gets to get on the team playing right down the road. Obviously, goes from being a Golden Gopher to a Viking. But no, I mean, Max Brosmer, I think we should. It would be right of us to just give kind of a primer on what he is as a quarterback and what the Vikings would be getting here, right? So you look at his numbers from college football last year. His 1 year at Minnesota, he was a transfer from New Hampshire, 14th in the FBS with an 84.2 passing grade, 77.5% adjusted completion rate, very good turnover-worthy play rate, 8th best in the country, and he makes intermediate throws with the best of them. And I think when you look at Brosmer as a player, the best way, Trev, you can go back to the draft and give your thoughts on this too. The best way I always thought of him when I looked at him more, he's very in that Jimmy Garoppolo kind of category where he's efficient, he's got a quick release, he's going to throw the football on time, he's accurate, just doesn't have the biggest arm or the most mobility to make plays outside of structure. But I kind of think of him in that sense of just a guy who's going to do what the coach tells him and get the ball where it needs to be placed. I think if he's going to take shots down the field, it's going to be down the middle of the field off of play action. He's always been like that, even going back to his days at New Hampshire. But I think that's kind of what you're talking about. If you want an idea, okay, what kind of quarterback is Max Brosmer? I think about him a lot like Jimmy Garoppolo in that role he played all those years in San Francisco.
I actually liked Max Brosmer a decent amount when I was watching him throughout the draft process. I thought he was somebody who I thought had a good chance to get drafted, that was going to stick around on a team. So it's kind of cool to see him get his opportunity here as a rookie to step in for the Minnesota Vikings, like we believe is going to be the case with J.J. McCarthy, likely out due to that concussion. So I'm intrigued to see how he plays in this one. Now, going to Seattle for your first start, not ideal. Admittedly, that's a tough assignment and a Mike Macdonald defense. But I'm excited for him. I'm excited to watch that game on that side of the football. On Seattle side of things, I think the main data point that everybody's going to point to here in this one is what is Sam Darnold against the blitz, right? Because this is a Brian Flores defense. They're going to want to dial up the blitz. This is in their DNA. This is just what they do. Well, Sam Darnold against the blitz this season, 86.3 overall PFF passing grade. He has been fantastic against the blitz. And then to give more fuel to the fire of having some confidence with the Seattle Seahawks in this game, look, the Vikings will blitz and play zone, right? They'll allocate more resources towards attacking the pocket, and then they'll try to cover it more with zone coverage on the back end. So you're not playing true man coverage a ton, but let's face it, whether it's man matching principles or a guy being in your zone and then you have to pick him up as if you're just playing man coverage on him, not allowing him to catch the football. When you look at the Vikings' top two corners, Byron Murphy, 42.7 man coverage grade this season. Isaiah Rodgers, 36.0 man coverage grade this season. Anytime they are matched up with Jackson Smith-Njigba, I like that Jackson Smith-Njigba, right? How could you not? The guy looks like he's going to be a record breaker. He could be a record breaker this year. And even if he doesn't break the NFL record for most receiving yards in a single season, he is going to be an all-pro. He's going to be remembered as one of the best that the league has had in the 2025 season. So I don't like either of these guys in this matchup against Smith-Njigba. So I don't like the Vikings' advantage when they blitz against Sam Darnold, and I don't like their top corners and how they're going to cover JSN. If you can't do those two things, I don't like you to have a chance to beat the Seattle Seahawks. So I went with the Seahawks 27-13 in this game. I think they're going to win pretty handily, and I think the line of 11.5 going to Minnesota speaks to that.
yeah, I think Darnold's ability to handle pressure and possibly handle a high rate of simulated pressures could be something that is a theme in this game. And I think for Seattle, when you really look at, the first thing you have to think about is how in the world do we deal with Jackson Smith and Jigba? I think you said it right. The Vikings probably don't have an answer for that because nobody's had an answer for that this year. Going the other way, like you mentioned, Max Brosmer, I do like him. I'm with you, but really tough assignment here at his first start on the road against one of the best teams in football. I've got Seattle 28-17. I just think this Vikings offense is it's in a tough spot right now, and I think you don't want to be playing this Seattle defense when you're struggling the way that they are offensively. It'll be fun to see if Max Brosmer can go out there and play a good game, but I think Seattle's just a better team here.
Bills and the Steelers. This game in Pittsburgh. Up in the air whether or not Aaron Rodgers is going to start in this game. Although I think the last I read, again, we're recording this on a Wednesday, is that they were encouraged, or Mike Tomlin was encouraged, that Aaron Rodgers could start here in this game. Let's talk about the Steelers first. I'll let you kick it off here with this preview.
I think, to me, the best part of the Buffalo Bills defense is that edge trio of Greg Rousseau, Joey Bosa, and A.J. Epinesa, right? Bosa having the resurgent year as a pass rusher. Rousseau, I believe, is the highest-graded run defender off the edge in the league, and Epinesa is a really good third guy to have. That unit is 7th in pass rush grade and 6th in pressure rate, and you're talking about going against a Pittsburgh offensive tackle duo that I think is arguably the weakest part of their offense, right? Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu. That unit is 25th in the league in pass blocking grade. And Aaron Rodgers, if he is playing, it's just a 39.8 passing grade under pressure. So you look at, Rodgers needing to get rid of the football quickly because the tackles are not great. And if he doesn't, then he makes poor decisions under pressure. That's going to be at a premium, I think, in this game. Can the Bills get an edge rush going against this Rodgers-led offense that has struggled when he is under pressure? On the flip side, in the run game, again, I mentioned Rousseau as one of the highest graded run defenders, if not the highest graded run defender off the edge in the NFL. The Steelers like to get off tackle in the run game. They're much more efficient off tackle. Interior offensive line is decent, but they just haven't been able to create explosive runs between the tackles. I think if the Bills can win on the edges in both the pass and run games, I think the Steelers are going to have a hard time moving the football.
Yeah, I think that for me, this game is going to come down to whether or not the Bills can pass protect, because on that side of the ball, they've been pretty good at it throughout this season. Prior to week 12, they had a 75.5 team pass blocking grade and just a 26.6 pressure percentage as a team. But in the what have you done for me lately category, last week, they had a 46.9 overall team pass blocking grade, 6 sacks allowed, and a 41.3 pressure percentage. 41.3 is so different from the 26.6 that they had up until that point. So it was a bad day at the office for Osiris Torrance, for Spencer Brown, just for the offensive line as a whole there for Buffalo. And now they've got a very tough task blocking this Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line. And we talked on Monday about the Bills not having that one-on-one pass catching winner. And so it takes a little bit of time for those guys to get open, for the coverage to break down, for Josh Allen to find those guys when he needs to. And obviously when Dalton Kincaid is back in the lineup, you feel a little bit better about them doing that. But this is a tough matchup here, given what the Bills just went through and how badly they struggled on the offensive line. But I do think that they will bounce back here. I think this is a close one. I think the line of the Bills being favored by 3.5, I think that's pretty spot on, to be honest. I got Bills 21, Steelers 17 as the score that I came up with here. So I do think that Buffalo is going to bounce back and win this.
I have the same spread. This is a hard one to pick, though. I think there are roads where the Steelers defense can win this game, and you know me.
Agree.
And we'll see if the Bills, how much they just signed Brandon Cooks, trying to find some wide receiver help. We'll see if if he can help them out at all, at least getting vertical down the field, finding a way to separate. But there is a world here where the Steelers can win this game in usual Steelers fashion by being just a more physical team. It's going to depend to me on if they can stop the run. If James Cook can really keep the Bills in good down and distance situations, then they'll be okay. I'm going to take Buffalo 24-20, but I'm not feeling that great about it. I'll be honest with you. I also think this Bills team, they're just not the same offense away from Buffalo. This is going to be, I think, an ugly game where I think a few defensive plays. If the Steelers, as always, though, too, if they can force a couple turnovers, that could be the difference in the game. Can they get Josh Allen into just a couple of mistakes under pressure? That can make a huge difference.
For sure. I definitely agree with you there. Dalton, as we are recording this, less than 24 hours away, baby, from digging in to the Thanksgiving feast. And I told you on Monday what my Thanksgiving feast is going to look like because my father-in-law, he got way too much food. He's firing up the smoker. We got wings. We got ribs. We got beef tenderloin. We got all of that fantastic stuff. And I know that it's too late for everybody out there. I think it's too late for everybody out there to take advantage of Omaha Steaks offering all of these products. But let this be your inspiration here. Let my Thanksgiving menu make your mouth water to the point where you take a look at what Omaha Steaks has to offer. Because whether you're sending an unforgettable gift or treating yourself to everyday perfection, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. Gift USDA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, cozy convenient comfort meals, and so much more. Now, during their Cyber sale, you can get 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off on select favorites over at omahasteaks.com. Don't miss the best deals of the season and exclusive limited time offers. Plus, our listeners get an extra $35 off with the promo code PFF at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. I can't wait, man. I'm excited. I can't wait. They have so many. It's so far beyond. Obviously, the product is called Omaha Steaks, so you just think it's one dimensional. But they got everything over there. You have to check it out. This is some of the best meat deals that you're gonna find. It's fantastic. Deliver all the magic of the holiday season with our friends over at Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks has the unrivaled quality and variety. Every bite is backed with their 100% guarantee. The Cyber sale, it's a perfect time to shop for unforgettable gifts, the exclusive limited time deals, so much more. Check it out. 5 generations of uncompromised quality backed by an unconditional 100% money-back guarantee. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their Cyber sale, and get that extra $35 off when you use the promo code PFF at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code PFF at checkout. Terms apply. See the site for details. 3 more games here for us to discuss on the Week 13 holiday slate of NFL action. Raiders at Chargers. Raiders got Greg Olsen at the helm now, calling plays for him with Chip Kelly out. Olsen's a longtime NFL play caller, but I believe last time he called plays, what was it, 4 or 5 years ago? No, he was offensive coordinator with the Jags around like 2015, 2016. Was he with the Raiders in 2018, 2019? Anyways, he's been an on and off coordinator play caller in the NFL for a long time, like 15 years. So he's got the experience. They're letting him step in, and maybe the offense looks a little bit different here. But against a beat-up Chargers team, one that's coming off a bye, how do you feel about the Chargers in this one?
You are correct that the last time he was an OC with the Raiders, it was actually with the Raiders, 2018 to 2020. I always remember him back in the days with the Bucks coaching, right? The Josh Freeman era, right?
Yep.
Back then, I forgot.
Who could forget?
Honestly,
Who could forget?
I forgot that was that long ago, to be honest with you. Greg Olsen and Josh Freeman back in the day. Wow, what an era that was. But, Greg Olsen calling plays for the Raiders. But I'll look at the Chargers' offensive side of things, and I think something that makes their offense so dangerous is just there's so many, just a constant threat in the slot, right? And it could be on both sides of the field. When you talk about Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, now Oronde Gadsden is in that mix, and he played in there a lot when he was at Syracuse throughout his career there, despite being listed as a tight end, right? Even Trey Harris and Quentin Johnston get involved a little bit, but you look at the Chargers and how many threats they have in the slot. 3rd most targets to slot receivers and 3rd most yards to slot receivers in the league this year, 8th in receiving grade, 10th most explosive plays. And when you really look at the options here for the Raiders when it comes to defending the slot, Darnay Holmes has really struggled at the nickel. Jamal Adams, now a linebacker, has kind of fluctuated between that linebacker and nickel role. Jeremy Chin will get in there as well, but this is really the first problem you have to worry about is how do you match up with this team in the slot? And the first time these two teams played, Gadsden didn't get any targets. He really wasn't involved until a few weeks later, so now you have a whole different problem to deal with, and a guy who can get down the seam vertically against this cover 3 defense. I think it's going to be a real problem on both sides of the line of scrimmage there, especially if they're in these 2-by-2 sets. You have McConkey, you have Keenan Allen, you have Gadsden. There's all sorts of problems I think the Raiders could have in coverage facing all these slot receivers and how dynamic they are for this Chargers offense. Yeah,
it's hard to have faith in the Raiders right now. It really is. On the offensive side of things, to me, whether it's this game or anything down the stretch, you got to get Ashton Jeanty going more. I mean, Ashton Jeanty has been fine this season, but I don't think he's been the spectacular offensive playmaker that you drafted him to be honest, especially when you talked about drafting him versus an offensive tackle like Armand Membu or something like that, the debates that we had heard pre-draft. And I'm not sitting here saying that let's call Ashton Jeanty a bust. That's not anywhere close to what I'm saying. But I do think that you want more out of that particular player where you drafted him. And I think the offensive line has not played well this season. Guys have been hurt. We've mentioned how big of a loss it has been without Colton Miller there in that lineup. But it just feels like the continuity, the chemistry, the confidence, it's not there with anybody. And maybe that changes now with a new play caller in there in Greg Olsen. But to me, Ashton Jeanty, 18 explosive runs this season. That's tied for 14th most in the NFL. I mean, overall, when you look at this offense, they're 28th in red zone percentage. They're 25th in third down percentage. I mean, this is just not a good offense right now. So to me, obviously, you need Geno Smith to play better as well, because you got a quarterback question to answer once you get into the offseason. But I want you to feel really good about Ashton Jeanty going into the offseason. If the season ended right now, I think you'd go, yeah, I mean, he's a good player for us, but I think he's not one that really overcomes the deficiencies of the offensive line. Can he do that anymore? Is there a certain type of a game plan in which you feel better about that investment there? Because I just love to see him run a little bit more confidently, run loose, obviously being able to get this guy to have more explosive plays. I know it's tough during the season, but I'm kind of just looking long-term here for the Raiders. And it's just a bad season. They're not a good football team. They're not playing well offensively. It's terrible, to be honest with you. So does the new offensive coordinator change things at all whatsoever? Can you get Jeanty more involved and feel more confident about him as your focal point going into next year? That's what I'm hoping to see. For this game, the Chargers are extremely beat up. I'm still taking the Chargers. 24-16 is my final score here.
Yeah, it's hard for me to really blame Jeanty, and I'm a huge fan of his game. I'm just going to throw one stat out here for you. So total missed tackles forced as both a runner and a receiver. Number one, Bijan Robinson, tied for second, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, and then fourth right there is Ashton Jeanty and Devon Achane. And I just look at this Raiders team, and it's why I picked the Browns to beat them last week. They can't block anybody. They can't block a soul right now without Colton Miller, with all the injuries on their offensive line. So I think even against a Chargers team that in the trenches has been banged up, certainly on the offensive line, but I've got the Chargers too, 27-13. The Raiders, you're right, it's a mess. They can't block anybody. Geno's not playing well. The defense doesn't have enough talent. It honestly, depending on opponent, it might be hard to see them winning another game this year, as bad as it's been. If this offensive line continues to play like this, then they're going to have a hard time scoring points on anybody.
And at this point, I wonder if their fans would prefer that as well, right? Give us the better draft pick at this point if the year is going to be a waste. Denver Broncos traveling to Washington to take on the Commanders. Both these teams have byes last week. I know the Commanders and the Broncos did. So both of these teams, yes, coming off of the bye week from last week, also getting a little bit of extra rest, playing on Sunday Night Football, playing on prime time here. I'll start, Dalton, and this run game with the Denver Broncos, to me, has to be better. J.K. Dobbins goes down with the injury. Bo Nix has played well, but I still think there's some hot and cold to Bo Nix as well, right? Like the previous game that they had against the Chiefs, he had some big-time throws in that game, and you love to see it. But we've also watched very similar situations where Nix has just been a little bit off of a deep ball, just a little bit outside where his wide receivers could get it. So I think that inconsistency is just going to exist throughout this season. And with that, I think you'll need to lean into the run game more than they've been able to, or at least have some better return on investments than they've had over the last couple of weeks. When you look at RJ Harvey, over the last 3 weeks, he has not had, or last 3 games, I should say, because they were on the bye last week, but he has not had a single game where he has averaged more than 3 yards a carry. Like, that's 3 yards per carry is like the floor. Like, you got to be higher than that if you want to be somebody who is making an impact on the game, efficient as a runner, making the most out of their yards per carry, and making the most out of the times that they touch the football. And right now, they are not balanced enough to do that. And for as much as I have faith in Bo Nix to have the talent to hit basically any throw that you need him to have, does he have that consistency yet? I still am a little bit hesitant to say that he is. I think he's just going to be a little bit of that hot and cold quarterback this season. And in the games where he's a little bit colder, you got to feel better about taking some of the load off of his shoulders and handing it off to the guys in the backfield. And I think RJ Harvey obviously has to be the guy to do that with J.K. Dobbins' injury. So that yards per carry average is really what I wanted to point out, to say it's got to be more balanced. Or I think that there's a game or two that they could lose down the stretch that their talent or their ceiling as a team would tell you that they would not. So I think that's got to be a lot better for Denver. But what do you think about Washington's side of things?
I'm going to talk about a similar subject here with the run game. And look, Marcus Mariota's probably going to play again. It looks like Terry McLaurin's got a shot to play, which ironically I do think could help the run game, because McLaurin's the one vertical threat in the passing game that can back safeties off a little bit. That's what I've seen all year from the Commanders' offense, is when McLaurin's not on the field, everything is too squeezed in from a defense. Everybody's in the box loading up to stop the run. And you've seen that in their last 6 games, okay? They ran the ball okay against the Miami Dolphins, but you look at their last 6 games, design carries, 3.6 yards per rush. That's not going to get it done. This Cliff Kingsbury offense needs to be able to run the football, create explosive runs, create yards after contact. Since that point also, the Commanders are 28th in rushing grade. They are 27th in explosive run rate. Look in that same time frame for the Denver Broncos, and they often use 5 defensive linemen on the field to really stunt things early in plays. Run defense grade 4th, and just a 3.4% explosive run rate allowed. Imagine that, Trevor. 1 out of every 30 runs is going for 10-plus yards against the Denver Broncos since Week 6. The Commanders have to find a way to run the football. You do not want to be throwing into this Denver secondary with or without Patrick Surtain, because they've been really good recently, even in spite of his injury. So I think, again, the Commanders we talk about this a lot, they got to find a way to run the football. They got to find a way to set up their offense and set up Mariota in good down and distance situations, especially then once you turn over this Broncos defense into their pass rush, which has been arguably the best in football this year. You have a real problem. The Commanders have to find some way to run the football on this Denver defense.
I still lean Denver here. I'm going Denver 27-17 is my final score, but what do you have in this one?
Same spread, a few more points. I have it 30-20. I just think this Commanders secondary, I think, we've seen Bo Nix be up and down this year, but I thought he played arguably his best game of the year against the Kansas City Chiefs, and this Commanders secondary is still a mess, even coming out of their bye week, so I'm going to take Denver on the road as well.
The final game, Monday Night Football, that we have this week, it is the New York Giants traveling to New England to take on the Patriots. I believe I saw while we were recording this show, no more Will Campbell this season, going on IR for the Patriots. So obviously that's an issue, because they'll need somebody to step up at that offensive tackle spot that Will Campbell was playing at such a high level. But for the New York Giants, talk to me about the Giants here.
I think when you talk about what the Giants are trying to do on offense, now whether it's Jackson Dart or Jameis Winston, whoever's going to play this week, they've been throwing the ball downfield better since either of these guys have been playing, right? But New England in coverage has just been outstanding really since the first 3 weeks of the season. And who didn't they have the first 3 weeks? That's Christian Gonzalez. This year, when New England has had Christian Gonzalez on the field, they have an 81.2 coverage grade. When he's been off the field, a 45.6. It's the ability to get versatile, to run man if they want to run zone if they want to. And honestly, look, you and I can both agree, Gonzalez is just a really darn talented player. That's just the guy that you need out there. He's one of the best cornerbacks in football. And when you look at that whole trio of Gonzalez and Carlton Davis on the outside, and then Marcus Jones in the slot, had the big pick 6 last week. He's been really good lately. And then better play at safety as well with Jalen Hawkins and those guys on the back end. This New England secondary has gotten better as the year has gone on, as Gonzalez has gotten healthier. And I think they have a big advantage here, even though obviously the Giants passing game has looked better lately. We'll see which quarterback is playing Monday night. I think New England's secondary could be in for another good day in this one.
When it comes to the Patriots on the offensive side of the ball, this one to me is, and I think every game, obviously you want to stack up wins here, but their win-loss record is good enough to where it feels like they're going to make the playoffs no matter what. It's really about just getting to the best version of whatever this team is. And to me, they still need to run the ball better. They've been complimentary in the run game, but they've still got to have those. They've still got to have the ability to lean on the run game a little bit more than they have lately. Because when you look at the Patriots this season, they only have 3 performances. So when I say performances, I don't mean like as a team. I mean individually. So either like a Travion Henderson or a Mondre Stevenson, whatever. So multiple performances within each game, because each one of these guys has a singular performance. They only have 3 performances over 70 yards rushing this season, and they only have 1 that has gone over 100 yards. So they have been sort of this rushing attack by committee type of a team. But I want one of these guys to step up a little bit more, be a little bit more dynamic. Be able to be somebody that if New England goes, hey, we need to hand you the ball 20 times this game, can you get us more than 100 yards? Can you be effective? Can we lean on you? Do they have that player? Can somebody continue to grow and step up more and more? It looks like Henderson is sort of on the up in that regard. Can he be that guy that could be more explosive for you that you feel pretty good about? And I know I'm throwing my producers on the spot here. Can you guys pull up the PFF player prop tool? Because I think that this goes into this as well. Drake May and his rushing attempts is also a big part of what this team does on the ground. And when you look at our player prop tool, you can sort it over on PFF.com. Again, if you have a PFF Plus subscription, you can see all this stuff. By the way, Black Friday, promo code to get 40% off here. If you look at the player prop tool and sort it by the cover probability, 70.5% cover probability that Drake May is going to have over 4.5 rushing yards. I like that a lot because that is a number to me that goes along with what Drake May has done for the New England Patriots so far this season, where 7 out of the last 10 games he has hit more than 4.5 rushing attempts. And 6 out of the last 7 weeks he has hit this number as well. So you see we have a very high cover probability. This is one of those. It's one of those lines that we like a lot. It's one that we think that you look at the game script of what this game could be. You look at what Drake May has meant to this rushing attack. Like, that's a number that we really like, and that's something that the PFF player prop tool helps any better out there, whether it's this better or any other ones. We help you guys find those cover probabilities and those high edges that we like there with the player prop tool, which, again, you guys can see over PFF.com. But ultimately, for this game, I like the Patriots 28-20. Yeah, anytime if Jameis Winston's starting, anything could happen. Right? They almost went into Detroit and beat the Detroit Lions last week. But I'm going to stick with the New England Patriots here. 28-20 is my final score that I'm going with. What are you going with, Dalton?
I'm with you on New England. I was looking for one of my own, actually. I'm seeing it here now. So what's on the player prop tool also? I had it as 14.5 earlier in the week, but Travion Henderson also over 15.5 carries himself. He's gotten at least 14 in 4 straight games, and he got 18 this past week against the Bengals, even with Ramondre Stevenson coming back. Stevenson with just 6 carries for 5 yards. I think this should be a heavy running day against this just awful Giants run defense. I think Henderson is getting featured more lately. I think he's going to get featured in this game, and you could get that second 100-yard game of the year. The first one was when, Trevor? Pop quiz?
When was the 100-yard game?
I'm just trying to
I had this up earlier, and I don't have it now. What is it?
I think you just don't want to say it.
Oh, it's the Tampa game.
It's Travion Henderson.
Oh, why did I do this?
See that?
This is a mistake.
Yeah, you tried to.
This show was a mistake. This
forget
career was a mistake.
You tried to forget it. See, Trev, you can't get set up that easy, man. I had to do it too.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I played myself.
New England 27, Giants 17. I do think that run game is actually a big factor in it. And Drake May, to your point about the rush attempts, with the lack of Will Campbell at left tackle, the heat could be on. You still have Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter rushing off the edge. Drake May really likes to make plays late in the play and scramble around and pick up those rush attempts, pick up extra first downs with his legs. So I'm with you, but I think the Patriots run game makes a big difference here.
Yeah, and against a Giants team that is surprisingly worse in the NFL in run defense grade. They're below 40 in run defense grade this season. Didn't think that would be the case, but I think that leans into sort of what we were talking about there. There we go. All 16 games in the NFL. No bye weeks this week. So 16 up and down for you guys there on this NFL holiday weekend. Appreciate everybody watching the show live. Appreciate everybody getting in on the action here with us. Again, if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, I keep saying it because we only have a couple of days left. Get 40% off. Black Friday is the promo code. If you don't have one, get yourself 40% off. If you'd love to be a partner with us here over at PFF, we'd love to hear from you. sales@pff.com. Everybody out there, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful holiday weekend. There's so much great football to watch. It's rivalry week in college football as well. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's stacked, baby. It's going to be a wonderful weekend of football. For everybody behind the glass producing the show, for Dalton Wasserman, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching the PFF NFL show. We will see you to recap all of it on Monday. See you guys then.